Coming up on the Branding Deep Dive podcast.
I remember I was working at USDA 8 years ago, and 8 years ago we had more than 50% traffic coming from mobile phones. The topmost question that was being asked: how long do you put a turkey in the oven? Of course, it is going to be like people are at Thanksgiving table or traveling. They are not at their desktop. Yeah. Okay. So what are they going to use to search whatever the question that they have, or, and absolutely, I still remember 8 years ago, I was like, wow, I can't believe that I will live to see the mobile traffic exceeding the desktop traffic.
This is Ahmed Cheema, and welcome to the Branding Deep Dive podcast. If you're new here, this is a podcast where we have in-depth discussions about what brands are doing well to drive customer loyalty and how you can take those principles and apply them in your own brand. In this episode, we are talking to Atiq, Warraich, who is the Web Program Director at the Department of Energy. He manages a website called energy.gov. You may have heard of it. This site gets about 4.5 million page views every month. Atiq has been in the web space his entire career, and he has helped small one-person businesses all the way up to giant organizations develop their web presence. If you're not sure where to start with web analytics and content management, this episode will definitely help. Now, here's Atiq Warraich. For the audience that doesn't know who you are, I'll let you give an introduction to yourself, but real quick, I just want to say I'm really excited about this episode because Atiq is someone that has worked with small businesses, politicians, local nonprofit organizations, and also currently is working at the Department of Energy as the Web Program Director. So he's worked in the content management space at all different levels, and I think there's a lot to extract here and a lot of value to be taken from this conversation. So I'll let you introduce yourself, but I just wanted to let the audience know, buckle up, this is going to be a good one. If you have a notebook, grab it, take some notes. There's a lot of lessons here from anyone with their own personal brand all the way to the largest organizations in the world. So why don't you introduce yourself, Atiq?
Sure. First of all, thank you. It's a pleasure. We wanted to do this for a long time. It's just timing was not working out, but we're here now, finally. So as you mentioned, that I am working at the Department of Energy as the Web Program Director for the past 7 years. And I manage energy.gov website. That is the main public-facing website of the Department of Energy. And I call it my second child. Because I already have a child. So, and it's a coincidence that I started that job about a month after my son was born. So it's not that hard to keep track of like how long I've been managing the website. Just have to add one more month to his date of birth, and that's it. Boom. And honestly, I have been taking care of that website as if it is my child, because they're just like little kids. They don't talk, they don't speak, they don't like. You have to be looking for what is in what they want. What are they? So just like the website as well. For managing that website for 7 years, I think I know what exactly it needs. It needs the best infrastructure, a scalable, solid architecture. That doesn't matter how many visitors are on the website, it's not crashing. And also, in terms of response time, the page is loading in a timely manner. Then the accessibility issues, people with disabilities, and that's, we're talking about Section 508. That's a law, and we have to comply with it. We need to make sure that all the people, regardless of their disabilities, they have access to the same information as people without any disabilities. So all these things, I try to make sure that we are serving and providing the information to everyone in a timely manner, in a user friendly manner, like in terms of navigation, branding, and all that. And absolutely, it is a very fast paced environment, and there is no any dull moment any day, anytime. And I believe that is one of the reason that 7 years later I'm still at this job. And I was actually just joking with my boss that they make sure that you don't have enough time to apply for another job. It is that kind of like and every day you're learning something. And I think like it's not that if you're learning, that is also your personal career growth is happening at the same time. New technologies, the people that you work with in your team, they bring a lot of knowledge and they share with you. You learn from them. You share with them. So it's been really very exciting environment, and I hope to stay in this role for a really long time because I absolutely love it, and I think I will. It's a great opportunity to share that what does it takes to build teams, an environment where people want to be part of that team and want to grow and excel. So in a nutshell, I've been doing the web development for the last, about 18 years. I started out as a very hardcore developer, coding my way, and and honestly, I never liked coding much. But in terms of the web development, the user interface, and accessibility, all these kind of things, like I call myself a jack of all trades. And it helps a lot that in my career, I always saw that you have one, the above my pay grade people going around and over promising things, and then coming back and making your life miserable. So instead of like kind of like looking for like, okay, maybe at some point these people will get their acts together, I was like, I'm gonna try to make my way up, and maybe I can do a better job at not over promising. And then so that has been my strategy as well. Like now I don't code at all, but I have as I mentioned that I've been a very hardcore programmer in my previous life. So I have a very soft corner for the developers. I'm on their side as well as I'm on the management side as well, and the senior executives, making sure that I deliver things in a timely manner, and not make anybody's life miserable by making false promises.
Mm-hmm. So you said you started off as a programmer, and then now you're kind of more in, I would say, like a management role, right? So when did that shift? When you started out, were you always working with these content management systems, or is that something that happened later on at some point in your career? Were you always in web content management, or was that a shift that happened at some point?
Yep. So what I could recall back in '99, that is when I started developing websites. There was not such a thing, content management system. It was like everyone has like kind of some idea, but in terms of small businesses, I don't think that they had the technology, they had the IT staff to kind of manage all that. And you need to have good understanding of HTML and CSS to design the website back then. Also, if you wanted to update anything, you still need to know HTML. There's like nothing, you could not update a website without that knowledge, that skill. And throughout my career, that's one of the transitions that I have witnessed myself, that this whole technology evolution from HTML coding, hardcore, very, very convoluted kind of process to very streamlined process where all you need to know is how to type something up in Microsoft Word. and you could be a great storyteller, and you can write blogs and articles and press releases without knowing even a single thing about HTML. So I think that the whole evolution, kind of in my career, I was used to work at the Michigan State University. At that time, I was involved into evaluating the content management system. So that is like when I got my hands on, like, okay, hey, these are the things that can streamline. So for small businesses, it really doesn't make much sense to at back then, to have a content management system and have all these extra functionality. For them, it's probably easier to have 5-10 pages of HTML, hire somebody who can do the code or update, and be done with it. But when it comes to like bigger organization, medium-sized organization, you have 10-15 people writing blogs and articles, and you want to make sure that there is no stoppage of work. It's like you easily you can bring in people, you can train them, and you can keep the ball rolling. So and it's very difficult to find the developers, and even if you find them, it's very expensive. So I think this whole evolution of content management system, it's been great. And one example I would add, I was used to chase down the content. Somebody posted something which he or she was not supposed to be posting, or deleted something, and then I'm running around and trying to find like who did it, when, and all that kind of stuff. Now in content management system, it's very easy. Everything has a paper trail. Who logged in, what changes they made, what time they made that, and it easy peasy.
I think that's a good segue into, I think one of the discussion topics we talked about when initially having you on was content governance and policy, right? And so as it has gotten easier for users to create content, these CMSs have really made it really easy. You see an influx of content, right? And just a massive number of pages and PDFs and links on these websites, right? And so I think where you're at right now is probably one of the most organizations that are listening, or most individuals that are listening, probably don't have a website that has as many pages as the Department of Energy, right? Energy.gov. Mm-hmm. And so I think I want to steer the conversation a little bit in that direction, right? So how do you think through, so you kind of mentioned one thing, right? Section 508, you have to make sure everyone has access. And then I guess what I really want to unpack is, as someone that's kind of managing all these pages of information, all this content, how are you thinking through what to keep on, what needs to stay, what needs to go? How do you manage all that? How do you manage all the information? Because that is, what the customers are seeing. That's what your users are actually accessing. So if you could.
Sure. This is absolutely great question. So in my current organization, the way things are set up, I absolutely love it that you have each program office. So there is Department of Energy, and then there are different program offices. We have the solar office, the water, renewable, nuclear. There are about 30 different program offices. Now, each program office, we have given them the ownership of their content. So we give them the training in the CMS. We help them navigate, and we build the architecture of the website. It's just like, helping somebody learn how to drive, and then give them the keys, and there they go. And if they need anything, have any question, they come back, and we help them with any questions or best practices. But in terms of managing the content of their program offices,
Can I pause you right there? Sure. Because I think right here is a really good lesson for people in the small business space, right? As small business owners and as personal brands, you have to be a jack of all trades, like you mentioned you are. And as a jack of all trades, it's really important that the people you train, they are able to quickly execute on your vision. So
Right.
can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how do you make sure that, the training is up to par, and then that they're upholding the same standards that you have as the broader organization?
Right. So in terms of training, it's we provide training to each and every new user and refreshers on demand as well. And we touch pretty much all aspects of the CMS, all the content types, and also accessibility as well. There's a separate office who leads the accessibility um, issues and compliances. In terms of energy.gov, we partner with them and make sure that we get their feedback and we integrate their feedback into what we need to. And also we use third-party tool as well that scans the website, and then we prioritize that. Okay, well, which are the quick wins here? There might be some things that we can do that can improve the scanning results across the platform, instead of somebody making some changes on their page. But if we make certain pages, all the pages in the Drupal, the content management system that we use, it will be impacted all across the platform. Now, in terms of the way it is set up, I absolutely love it that you have, for the small businesses, once they grow, I have witnesses that they struggle with their content and everything else that is going on because they're not used to the getting big, and always it's going to be problematic. The way the energy.gov content is set up and being managed, that we have something called organic groups in the back end of the content management system, and every group has within that group you can have any content. You can publish, you can delete content, you can unpublish, do whatever you want to do. There is no any interference with other groups. So, and also giving them the independence to manage their contents and be responsible as well. So I am huge fan of promoting ownership. Like, even that might be little tiny bitty things that somebody take on the ownership, and just don't keep kicking that to somebody else's plate. And I've seen that, like, anytime that I have seen even one single example where somebody's like, okay, I'm gonna take care of this content type, and that is my responsibility. Podcast, for example, we have somebody in our office, and that he takes the ownership. He does podcasts, and like, there's no any interference. Like, that guy is that guy for the podcast, right? So and same thing with. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was going to ask. You mentioned something you kind of briefly skimmed over. I think there's a point that I would love to hear your input on. Is
Sure.
that as businesses are scaling from small business to medium business, often one of the first things that gets neglected is their content, right? Their website, because they're so focused on the operation and making sure that things are staying afloat.
Right.
So I wanted to get your take on, why do you think is it important? First off, is it important to prioritize your content and content management? And then if so, if it is, then why? If it isn't, then why not?
Okay. First of all, the website and the content, it is the reflection of the business, and not a lot of time, not nowadays in this day and age, people are not going to go knock at the door or drive by and see, or get inside the shop and look at the catalog. It's always going to be, for the most part, people are going to browse on their phone or on their desktop, look at the website. So I think there should not be any compromise. It shouldn't be even question that, is it going to be, should we compromise on that or not? Any small business, medium business, large business, you have to put a lot of focus on your content, because the reach that you have, it is just incredible. And the image that you would have, if your content is not up to date, I mean, that is not going to go well with the users. I don't think anyone would be interested if there are two products with different prices on somebody's website. I don't know if that might actually be questionable, that this is a legit business, that there's different prices for the same product, and it could be somebody just had one page for the product, and the other guy just started a new page, and so all I'm saying, like it just that it could be just inaccurate information.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that need to reflect that business. And it is very important to keep the content up to date, that information up to date, because at the end of the day, the purpose of the website is information sharing. So if the information is not correct, then why would or should that business even have the website? Because that is going to probably cause more confusion than help the customers.
Yeah, there's one of the guys that I follow. One of the analogies he uses is that creating content, kind of staying up to date with all of it. He's actually referring to it in regards to social media, but I think even for your website, if you have a good SEO strategy and you're actually organically reaching people, it's like having 1,000 handshakes every day. Right? Like these page views you're getting through ranking on Google, people are looking for something, and Google is saying, hey, check this business out.
Right.
And if you're not staying on top of it, like you mentioned, your authority in that space is going to go down and down and down. And then the business that you've built, if you want to ultimately keep scaling it, you need to make sure you have authority in your space. And if you don't, then it's only a matter of time. In this day and age, like you mentioned, that people are more and more. I know you were one of the. I know you mentioned a project you were working on where I think it was one of your past offices that you were at, but you actually transitioned a site that was just desktop. And I think it was when HTML5 was first coming out, and you made a mobile, either as an application, or you kind of made a mobile first kind of experience for the website. And so I think
that's a very long time ago. I don't know how you remember that, but it's interesting. Yeah, that was I was working at the Federal Election Commission at the time, and that's probably about 12 years ago. And at the time, that this whole like mobile responsive, everyone has their own name, like what you want to call it. But it was very interesting to be in that race to get your content responsive. And there were some of the data that I was interested in, that people during the election, of course, they're looking at like who is raising more money, and I started working on it. And it was I put a lot of my personal time into it, weekends, because I was like this is, I want to get it done. And I showed it to my boss, and he showed it to his boss, and all of a sudden it's a big thing. I was I had a few months, and I was asked to deliver that project within a few months, because they wanted to announce it. And like it was just me working all by myself, and it was the time when you had even when you Googled, you're not going to find much. And honestly, in my career, that was one of the best things that I enjoyed, not being the sheep and finding something and copying and pasting code. But it was something that you see that everyone is struggling. Okay, hey, what, Google Maps are not responsive. Like, what? Google Maps are not responsive? Then what is responsive? And then you find something, and they change their libraries, JavaScript libraries, and then all of a sudden whatever you build, it's not working the way it was supposed to be working. So being in that group, it was just incredible. And I'm very proud of that work, that I built that small portal that was mobile responsive, even though when the rest of the website for the Federal Election Commission was not mobile responsive. But eventually, again, this content management system, these been evolving over the period of time. Now you have Drupal, WordPress, and a lot of other content management system, very sophisticated. And And again, they're the priority is mobile first. And for our project, energy.gov project, it started back in 2011, and the keyword, a lot of focus was on mobile first. Because if something is rendering properly in mobile phones and tablets, it will render fine in the desktop as well. Because a lot of time what happens, and I've been in this web development business for a long time, when it comes to mobile phones or tablets, that's where everything was being compromised. And I think this approach that, okay, mobile first, it helped a lot. Okay, no. Because in the last couple of years, the mobile traffic has been almost same as the desktop traffic. And I pretty much live and breathe on Google Analytics as well. At any day I'm working, I have one tab open in Google Analytics, and I'm monitoring the live traffic coming to the website. And I remember I was working at USDA 8 years ago, and 8 years ago we had more than 50% traffic coming from mobile phones. The topmost question that was being asked: how long do you put a turkey in the oven? Of course, it is going to be like people are at Thanksgiving table or traveling. They are not at their desktop. Yeah. Okay. So what are they going to use to search whatever the question that they have, or, and absolutely, that was that, I still remember 8 years ago, I was like, wow, I can't believe that I will live to see the mobile traffic exceeding the desktop traffic.
There's a lot that's going on here. So I want to unpack this a little bit. So I think the first thing is that it's super important to, oftentimes when you're building a brand or you're building a product, whatever it may be, when you're inventing on behalf of the customer may not know what they want. They can't articulate it. And what you said, this mobile first revolution, I think that's a really good example of that, right? Like customers may not be able to say, hey, you need to go mobile first. They're not thinking about that. They're like, oh, this website's over here. I'm trying it on my phone. It doesn't work good, but whatever, it gets the job done. But then when you show them that, right, then they can't go back, right? Then it's like, oh, like I was missing out on this the whole time. And I think you look at the great brands like the Apples and all these of the world, they're like, I think Amazon's a great example. Like you start with, you make an announcement, we're doing 2-day shipping. Right. Now, if I get a package that's, it takes a week, I'm like, what is this? You know what I mean? Right. Before that, it was normal. You know what I mean? Like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it'll take time. You understood. And you paid $10 for the shipping for a week. Now it's like for free, 2 days, sometimes 1 day. It's like, it's crazy. So I think the branding principle here is that you have to keep pushing on behalf of your customer. Right. And the insight that you're gaining, and I think that's where I want to kind of drive this, is that you're looking at the traffic. You're understanding what people are trying to find. You're seeing the analytics. Where are they coming from? They're coming from their mobile. What are they searching? How do we make this experience better for them? Right. So can you touch on a little bit more on the Google Analytics piece and how for small businesses that are looking to create content, right, or optimize their website, what are you kind of thinking through in that space? What are you looking at in terms? You don't have to go into the super details, but like at a high level, how are you thinking through your content strategy, and what are you looking for as feedback for your website?
Right. Sure. So one thing that when I started working at the Department of Energy, I implemented Google Webmaster Tools, and for not a lot of people know that, but you can tap into Google search, and before somebody comes to your website, you can find out exactly what they were searching before they landed to your website. I think that is just incredible wealth of data right there. that what was going on in somebody's mind. So we don't know exactly, if that person got what they were looking for. And I think that, for small businesses, I would highly recommend, for any business actually with any website, just ask one simple question. Did you get what you were looking for? You need to be able to connect with your users. In the federal government, we're not supposed to be tracking users. We cannot even track the IP addresses or something. In the private sector, you can track user whatever you want to track, pretty much. And it's you can talk back with the users. You can ask their email address, phone numbers. Okay, how do we reach back to you? And what did you like about our website? What you didn't like about your website? But again, not getting into too much of a survey or questionnaire 5-minute long, but just one question. Start with one question. Did you find what you were looking for? Okay. If the person is not in hurry, they are going to respond yes or no. If they say yes, end of story. You have a happy customer. If no, then you need to talk back to those people. Why? And they will be more than happy to tell you, because they are not happy and they're looking for somebody to talk to. So that's from my personal experience, that when on surveys, or you end a phone call, and then this whole questionnaire, guess what? Who is sitting there and complaining? The people who are not happy. Okay, so I think there are a lot of different ways to connect with the users. About 15 years ago, I was looking at website designs and stuff like that, and there was one example that stuck in my head. It was just incredible. On Harvard University, they had one link. I don't know if they still have it, but back then, I just loved that idea. They were not asking hey, registration form, you're a college student, you're applying for admission or stuff like that, give us your phone number, blah, 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 and we'll send you the information. What they asked for was one simple link: introduce yourself. And I thought that was incredible. That it's not just, because you don't know who is that person. But when you can put in there, hey, apply a job here, or you want to reach out to somebody at the university, or or you're looking for a job. It could be anyone. Introduce yourself. It's like you're reaching out to everyone. I don't think anyone you're going to skip that way. So I think in terms of again, there are different design, there are different ways to connect with users, and I think there are a lot to explore. Even myself, I'm learning a lot. But honestly, I think it's very important that you need to, even though it is a website, but you need to be responsive, and you need to, if there is an email, or there's a contact us form, or when somebody comes to your website, if you can ask one simple question, and start the conversation and reach back to them, that's the way to do it.
I think there's a lot. Each of your answers, there's so much to unpack. So, thank you. But
I got 18 years of experience, so I have to offload that in about an hour. So let's see.
Right. So first thing I want to touch on real quick is that experience that you're saying, just asking, did the user find what they were looking for? That's something that I've seen in grocery stores nowadays too. Like you go to the self-checkout,
right?
The first thing they ask before you can even start, hey, did you find everything you're looking for? And there's a lot of research, time, and energy that goes in the grocery store trying to make sure that the items are placed together in the right place so it makes sense logically. You're able to find it, right? The signs are there, all that stuff. The same thing with your website, right? They're coming to your website for a purpose. They want to get something. You need to make sure you create those passageways, and it's clear how to get the job that they were trying to do done. It's the same thing in operations, right? Like I come from an operations background, right? Like Lean, Six Sigma, like that stuff, 5S. Like if you can make sure the person that's trying to do the job has everything they need, right?
Right.
You're going to make the process so much more efficient, right? And so how do you know that they have everything they need? How do you know that there's not some issue that keeps bugging them that's causing downtime? You ask them, hey, are you able to do your job? Is there anything that's getting in the way, right? You stand them down. Hey, talk to me about the process. You watch them, say, hey, I see you doing this. Like, can we make this process better somehow? So really good point there. Google Analytics, Google Webmaster, really useful tool. I haven't used it myself that much, but I think after you kind of, I hope they're paying you or something because I want to start using it. But next thing I want to touch on is a little bit, let's get back into energy.gov a little bit, and just analytics wise, what kind of numbers, like what are the page views you're getting? Do you mind touching that a little bit? And then I know, actually not energy.gov necessarily. I want to talk about keywords and how you optimize your website for that. And I think you had when we were talking, you mentioned a story at Michigan State University. I think that would be the perfect one here.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, you asked the
page
analytics for energy.gov. That's not a secret. It's all open information. We actually participate in one of the digital analytics program. And what that program does, it collects all the data from all the federal government website that are participating in that program, and they have on their website, it's all public data. So we have we got about 4.5 million page views per month for energy.gov. And
I think that's slightly more than Branding Deep Dive gets.
Right. I mean, it's just honestly, I'm very excited because for the last about five plus years, I have not seen the numbers more than 4.5 million. About 2 months ago, we had 4.7 million page views. So I'm seeing the growth. I think there's a lot of fresh content coming in. New ideas, new administration, that's always like, I think it's whenever you have a new administration, you have a lot of, new audience coming in and kind of like, you get new followers. That's normal. The media is also like, kind of like energized, like, hey, good or bad, just watching over your shoulder what these people are doing or what these people are not doing. And also, with the new political appointees, a lot of new young staff, and they want to accomplish as much as they can with very short period of time. So I'm very excited. And I think we're going to grow, and I'm looking forward to 5 million page views pretty soon. So in terms of keywords, that was a really interesting example that I was working at Michigan State University, and I developed a website that where you could post the research projects. The faculty could post the research project, whatever research they have going on, and they could collect information of the students, whoever is interested in the research work. After a few months, we heard some complaints like, hey, students were like, well, we're not finding any information. This application is just a piece of crap, Mm-hmm. We just, and the faculty, you're like, well, we just wasted all this money because, we're not finding any applicants. What is going on? So what I did, and now this is very important. You always need to dig more into data. You shouldn't just, on the surface, on the face, you make any decision like, okay, well, this application is garbage, or this project is garbage. You need to dig more into it, like, why is it not working? Okay, and more data you have, better decision you can make, better visibility you would have what is going on. And I was the coder at the time, so here's what I did. Every time somebody is clicking that press button, let's say, for example, somebody is searching for biology or chemistry, or just simple keywords like somebody's looking for a internship on campus. Every time they press that button, previously it was just searching through the keywords database and bringing in the project that were matching, right? So what I did, every time they're pressing that button, I was triggering another event that I'm just taking that keyword data and dumping into the database. So I had all the list of the keywords, and they were so basic. Okay.
Let me try to make sure I'm getting this right.
Sure.
So you set up a platform where the faculty can post projects, and then students can also search for projects and try to get those projects.
Right.
And so at first you're not getting any connections, right? You're not able to connect the students with the faculty. And so from there, what you did is you created an extra layer to the program where you're keeping track of the keywords that the people are searching.
Right.
And then, I just want to make sure I get that right.
Yeah. So absolutely. So basically it was a website with a database where you could search what projects are there for faculty and student can apply.
Okay. So if I'm a student, I want an internship, I want a project, I go to this website and I look for them.
Yep.
And if I'm a faculty member, I need a student to help me out with this.
Right.
I post it there. It's like a job posting.
Yeah. If you're a faculty, you have access to the back end. You could start a project. You could put keywords in there that what are the things that, when somebody's searching, that it should, match up.
Got it.
So once I had that data, I was like, wow, this is incredible. So what students were searching, all that data versus what faculty put in there as keywords and matching keywords in that application. So did the comparison, it was pretty straightforward. The students, they don't know all the microbiology and all those terms, were very into the weeds research that some faculty is doing. They have no idea. They don't even know what major they're going to be, right? So at that point, we went back to the faculty. We were like, look, this is what's going on. So you guys need to dumb down a little bit. These are poor students. They're, they already have not done their PhD. Okay. They're fresh college students, sophomores, maybe, just as simple as you can for the keywords, that will be very helpful. And once they start updating those keywords, then boom, that project was not killed. And it is actually it is still to date. Michigan State University is using that project.
Oh wow!
It's called venture.msu.edu. So it was like the whole idea was like venture. So they changed the layout and everything. I'm not honestly sure that if the back end and the coding is still what I put in there, but I have a lot of personal connection with that project.
That's really awesome. And I think if we did like a case study somehow of like all the small businesses and all these startups in the world that are creating job postings, I feel like we'd come up with a lot of that, where like these people that are so into the weeds are having difficulty finding people to join their teams. Because why? Because they're talking about the weeds, right? Like they're talking about things that people don't necessarily know. So I think that's a very valuable insight. And I think coming back to the Google Webmaster thing is like, how can you know? You had to create a separate query for it, but this Webmaster tool should help you, right? Like if they're coming to your website, why are they coming? Or if they're not coming to your website, what are people actually searching, right? And kind of looking at the data from trends and all that stuff. So I think that's very important. Coming back to Department of Energy, how many? Do you know how many pages you have total?
About 150K.
Wow. Okay. And then I know you mentioned you have PDFs as well.
Yep, a lot of PDF. Sometimes I call it Department of PDF. So. No, jokes aside. I think probably 400 500K PDFs. And PDFs are actually more problematic because the content is buried in the PDF documents. Keeping those up to date, it's just very time consuming.
That brings me to my next question, and that is, when you're dealing with content at that scale, right? Like if we're talking about a small business, if I'm talking about my personal website, let's talk about brandingdeepdive.com. We don't even have any articles right now. Let's say we started doing articles, probably 10, 20, 30, max 100 articles. We can go through and find, okay, this is not a good article. This is no longer relevant. This information changed. Need to update this. The policy over here doesn't apply anymore. But with 150,000 pages, 500,000 PDFs, an insane amount of content, right? Like I think most of our listeners are not dealing with that amount of content, but I think there's a lot of important lessons here on how you manage content that got old, content that is no longer relevant, right? Like I'm sure you guys are, you guys are working in policy and government, and so things changing all the time. And so if you could walk the audience through at a high level, how do you actually make sure that the content on your website is up to date and at that scale, right? Like how do you make sure that the users are getting the most relevant information at that time?
Yeah, no, this is very challenging. And honestly, I didn't have to deal with this problem at that scale, any of my previous jobs. And it might be that, I've been at this job for too long, 7 years. So you have to clean up, and for the last 3 administration, this has been kind of, you do migrations from one platform to another platform, and it's just like moving, honestly. You pack up your stuff and you go to the new place, and there are some of the boxes always going to be just sitting in there. Okay. And a lot of time, a lot of people don't even open those boxes because they know that, it is going to eat up, that good chunk of the entire summer. They would have to go through each and every single thing.
Yeah.
And, when I moved from Michigan, man, I still have some of those boxes. So I'm not going to lie. So I think
I was going to say, it sounds like you're speaking from personal experience.
Right. No, I think it's normal process. When you move, it is going to happen, and if you move too much, those boxes, I think it's better to keep them in the boxes. But anyway, same thing with energy.gov as well. When in 2011 there was major redesign when we started using Drupal, and even back then there was a lot of content. There was, because getting that reviewed from so many different people, my office doesn't produce all that content. It is all 30 plus different program offices. They produce that content. So going back and forth, even the person who might have authored that certain content, blog or press release or something, might not be even at the department anymore. So first you have to find that person. Hey, if that person is still there. After that, if that person is willing to review and get back to you in a timely manner. So we're talking about just one blog. So imagine if you have 150,000 pages, and each and every single page you want to get it reviewed, it would be very time consuming. So what I like personally, the way we have dealt with this issue is, I think is really, really interesting, that not getting too much into the weeds, just being flexible, just developing the functionality and giving it back to the program offices, these offices. Like, okay, here's the complete package. It's up to you how much you want to use. So what we were able to do within the content management system, we built functionality where each and every content need to be tagged. So you have different categories. You can tag it as purge. Okay, well, this content, piece of crap, is old, obsolete, get rid of it. Simple. Okay, it's just one click. you tag, there's a drop down, you tag it, and that's it. From our side, the people who manage the CMS, all we have to do is run a report. Anything that has a tag with purge, unpublish it, and then eventually get rid of that content.
Mm.
So
what you're saying is you created this functionality within the CMS where a team of backend people can essentially flag content that they think is no longer accurate, and I guess they can just do that as they see it, and then you guys probably review it weekly or monthly.
That process is still, we're working on it, and this whole idea evolved over the period of time, about 2 years on and off. So every time I was getting a request like, okay, could you go do a search in the CMS? How many times this certain keyword that is politically sensitive mentioned? So I was going back, doing a search, coming back, and then eventually I was like, this is consuming a lot of my time, man. So I started developing that functionality with the help of my development team and the reporting and everything. So every time somebody asks me, I just go back and run that, the query and get the report and give it to them. Now, exactly the same way we have the ownership of the content, the people are producing the content. My idea was that, okay, why not give it back to all these 200 plus people so that they can review, they can tag, and they can help us with keeping this content up to date, instead of us going after these people. Hey, why is this on the website? Which, of course, we do that. Like, for example, if there is any information that is obsolete and is sensitive and we need to get rid of it, of course, we get rid of it. But I wanted to not just kick the can down the road, but also make it flexible and streamline the process of keeping the content up to date. So right now, what we're looking into is that the user will not be able to even save the content or publish the content unless they tag it properly within the system, so that it becomes streamlined. And we're going to run this every year, all these reports. And right now we have a 3-year policy. Any content that is older than 3 years, that need to be reviewed. And that need to be tagged. And we have very flexible tagging as well. Like, okay, well, you can tag it as purge if you think the content is obsolete. If you think that, okay, well, this content, maybe in a year or so, I want to come back and review again, I might have more information or something, you can postpone that. You're like, okay, well, need review in about a year or something. You can pick and choose the date. And then there's some content that need to be on the website. It is required by law. So you can pick that tagging so that we don't accidentally delete it. And you don't need to review that over and over again because it's required by the law. There could be some content that is hearing and appeals related content, some related to climate change effects and stuff like that. Just a bunch of legal stuff that you need to have on the website.
I think, real quick, I think there's I think this quote is attributed to Bill Gates, but I'm not sure if this is actually something that he said. But the saying goes that I think he said that I would rather have a lazy person than a hard worker because they'll find the easiest way to get something done. So I think that is what you just described. That's what kind of came into my mind, because you're getting these requests. It's taking you a long time. Mm-hmm. You realize it's a waste of your time because you don't know the necessary details, right? And so you're like, how can I offload this off my plate and actually give it to the respective owners and make it easy for them to keep up to date, right? And so for product building, that is a very important lesson, is like, understand what the problem is, right? And don't just you can't be a yes man, right? Like, especially if you're going to chart new territory, you can't just be like, oh, someone's asking me to do this, let me just take a week and, every time check this one article. You know what I mean? How can I do this at scale? How can I make sure that the people that actually are in charge of this content are also able to flag it, also able to update that. So I think that's really important. And I think it's a good principle to live by. Can you, I know you had a couple examples. Can you give an example of, just to make it a little bit more concrete for the audience, an example of some piece of content that maybe became outdated and the kind of impact that it may have if it stayed there, and why it's so important at your level, at an organization as big as yours and with as much reach as yours and as much visibility, why it's important to stay on top of it. So if you could just give an example.
The former administration pulled back from the Iranian nuclear deal. We still have all the content on the website. Paris Climate Accord, that's another content that was on the website.
Hold up real quick. So I just want to paint this picture for the audience to make it really clear. So you're saying that the administration pulled out of these agreements that they had, yet on the website, it still had the old information. And so what we're talking about here in this example is not like, oh, you have the wrong price for a product. This is a matter of not just, even energy.gov at this point.
Right.
This is the brand of the United States government, the trust that the users have of the government that is at stake here. And so I just wanted to paint that picture for the audience.
Right. No, it's, and honestly, I still remember. So I'm going through the website and I'm looking for all the pages, any videos, any content, anything that has a mention of these, two agreements, and just, making sure that they're not on the website. Now, here's the sad part. I looked it up on the Department of State's website at the time, and it was still on their website. So, like, what is going on? So, again, at the beginning, I mentioned that this is not just the Department of Energy's issue, or energy.gov issue. It is, for any business, keeping your content up to date. That is very, very important. That tells your users, your visitors, what you are, what you stand for, and that information need to be as accurate as possible.
And you have an added duty as a public sector being funded by taxpayers, right? So I know you mentioned that what did you say? You said that your stakeholders are the taxpayers.
Right.
And so you have this added duty to make sure that the content is serving them, right? And it's accurate and they're getting what they're paying for. Right. So I think that's I just want to make sure that the audience understands that, don't take this stuff lightly. Like, make sure that you have these mechanisms in place. And what you highlighted is not just like, oh, we'll check our website every once in a while, but you created a mechanism, right? Like, hey, this is a problem. How do we make sure that it's not just, if I leave, it's still getting fixed, right? You created a tool, you created a process, and now if you leave, you're out of the picture. The content management system is still happening. So I think that's really important. I want to make sure the audience is getting that and really soaking that in.
And my goal is that it's Drupal is an open source. And at some point, I would love to have that developed separately, as a module in Drupal, that we can give it back to the Drupal community as well. So that it's not just for energy.gov. It could be any organization can use that and can benefit from this functionality.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Last thing I wanted to talk to you about, I read an article that you guys switched from your old hosting service, or was it hosting service or?
Yep. So we had a lot of issues at the hosting provider about 2 years ago. And honestly, by no any means it was that hosting provider's fault. I call it that we've been victim of our own success. We just overgrew. It was a small company, and one of the role that I have at this job, being the web program director, is to consolidate all the public-facing websites into energy.gov to save taxpayers money, so that there are not every single program office or sub-program office are creating their own websites. So the goal for the last 8-9 years for this project, energy.gov project, and this again, it has its own brand. The goal was to build an architecture that is scalable, that is dependable, and bring all these public websites to energy.gov. So you don't have to have a separate hosting. You don't have to have a separate Drupal. You don't have to have scan a different website. And even there are like so many in federal government. There are so many compliances of OMB, Office of Budget and Management stuff, and the White House directives and all that kind of stuff. If you have one website, all you have to do is make that website compliance once. If you have multiple websites, imagine the scanning and making those websites secure. All that cost just explodes. And over the last 7 years, I have been able to consolidate at least 50 websites into energy.gov. So with that, it's been growing. So I looked it up, Google Analytics. We used to have only 50,000 page views. And now we're talking about 4.7 million page views per month, right? So that growth that we brought in so many different websites, and we've been with our own branding been building. With that, at the previous data center, website just could not handle that much of traffic, and that is when the website started going down, and I started collecting data, how many times we were going down, and also we had certain SLAs that we enforced them, and we got the money back. But at the cabinet level agency website going down 8 hours in a day, it is not acceptable. Regardless, even if it's free, even then it is not acceptable, because it has a name, it has a brand, and it has a trust that people have in that. You can't even afford that for free, having somebody host that. So anyway, again, it's by no any means it was the fault of that data center. It was just we just overgrew, and we needed a bigger space, a more stable place, and that is when I had a lot of meetings back and forth with my senior management and with the CIO office, and I'm really thankful for their support. They funded through the project. They provided me anything and everything that I needed, and I was able to move energy.gov website to Amazon Cloud as of June 2020. And we had 14 outages in 2019. And that was a total of 26 hours.
Wow.
26 hours
at a cabinet level.
At the cabinet level agency going down. That is the more than 2 hours every month. Imagine no website for more than 2 hours every month.
Yeah. So I want to paint the picture for the audience a little bit here. This is people are trying to access energy.gov, right, whether they're Google searching, whatever it is. And then when they get to the website, it's down.
Yep.
And so that happened for 26 hours in 2019, is what you're saying.
2019 for 26 hours.
And so I just want the audience to think about, like, you go to facebook.com, instagram.com, Netflix, these sites are never down, right? Like,
exactly.
They're always available. And so what you're saying, I think that this is a consistent theme throughout this whole podcast, is that you're taking the data and understanding what's happening and then taking action based on that feedback you're getting. And so that is so you're getting this data, 26 hours we're down. What can we do about this? And so you said, let's go to AWS, right? And so What was the result of going to AWS? So I guess real quick, the reason why you went to AWS is because you're having these downtimes and it's affecting the trust that the customers have, not customers, your users have, or the taxpayers have of energy.gov, right? And it's impacting your brand in a negative way. So you decided to go to AWS, and then do you have data from after the switch? When did you guys actually switch? Was 2020?
Yeah, June 2020. And after that, there has been zero outage to date. Wow. Knocking on the wood, So I'm honestly very proud of that project. That's probably, I would say, the highlight of my entire career. That was a project that I fought for it. And actually, as a matter of fact, when I started working at the Department of Energy 7 years ago, one of the questions that I asked during my interview, like, why are we not in AWS? Because that's the brand.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a stable environment, a cloud hosting environment, there's no better place.
Can you paint the picture for the people that may not be familiar with cloud computing?
Sure.
So just for the audience, and I'll kind of give my little 2 cents, my very basic understanding, then you can kind of give a little bit more. So my understanding is you were using a local warehouse that had servers, or sorry, not warehouse, but a local data center that had servers.
Right.
And these servers were hosting your website. And so when people were searching for energy.gov, it's taking them to these servers that are hosted at a physical space, probably somewhere near where you guys were.
Right.
And then since just the scale was not as big, they probably didn't have enough backups of your website and all this stuff. And there were, you had downtime. Now you go to Amazon cloud computing. My understanding is this, and please, I'm not a cloud computing expert by any means, is that you're essentially taking Amazon server space and you can scale with them and pay as you go. Essentially, if you're getting a lot of more traffic, they'll increase your bandwidth, and you essentially, it's like you're renting space on their servers, right? And so is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I have been a great fan of AWS, Amazon Web Services, and especially, when a retailer is leading the cloud space for more than 10 years, that tells you a story. This is not what they were supposed to be doing. This is not their job function. They were supposed to be selling books, man, right? Or whatever, diapers maybe, and then everything else as well. But how did they get into AWS? Because all these big IT name companies, they did not have the answer to the problem that Amazon was facing. And I think it is brilliant. It is just amazing story that you had a business who had nothing to do with cloud computing. They were like, instead of asking other companies and paying them so much money, they came up with a solution, and now they're leading that space for the last 10 years.
Yeah, that's, I work at Amazon, not on that side of things, but I think one thing I'll just add to that story is that this is something that what they were finding is that they were trying to do new projects, trying to launch new whatever, and it was just taking too much time to set up the IT infrastructure for each separate one.
Right.
So like, why don't we just set up this whole thing where people can just reuse things, right? So that's how it kind of started. And again, the theme is like understanding what the problem is, right? So they took the same approach. They're like, okay, this is a problem we keep running into. It's taking us months just to get a little thing off the ground, right? Because we have to keep setting up the same infrastructure over and over again. And we take that, how can we make this process better, right? And so I think that is, again, that's the theme of the podcast. I think we need to make sure, how can we do things better? Take the data, what are the pain points, right? Dive deep, take the data, understand what those pain points are. And then I always say this, and it's, some people, creativity is not about, drawing a picture. It's not about it's not about art, right? Like in a certain sense it is, yes. But like in regards to solving business problems, creativity is not like you wake up with a dream and you have a problem, you have a solution. It's about understanding at a very deep level what the problem is. And then from there seeing, okay, this is one potential solution. If we try this, we may be able to shave some time here. You know what I mean? Like, that's what true creativity is in the context of solving business problems. I think if you want to build a brand, you mentioned this before too, right? Like in the branding space, you don't necessarily see a lot of talk about data. When there should be a lot of talk about data. You should be measuring what people are coming to your website for. You should be looking at the problems that your customers are facing. Like it's all about data, right? It's all like, you have to have this mindset where we're constantly taking feedback from our users, our customers, our clients, whatever it may be, and improving that process. So thanks again for that wonderful theme of the podcast. I know I cut you off, so I'll let you. Is there anything else you want to touch on the AWS piece?
I forgot what I was going to say.
I'm sorry about that.
No, that's all right. I think that this was I pretty much covered everything. I just wanted to quickly add that even during this project, AWS migration project, I think what I enjoyed was the support from my senior management. Otherwise, I don't think I could have made it. So I think it's very important that you trust the people and you support them. First of all, you need to find the right people, and then you need to support them and give them the freedom and the tool to do their job, and then you will see the amazing results. And even in my team, that's exactly what I'm promoting as well. I want to make sure that, I'm not telling them, okay, you go from point A to point B. No. Just go wild, and let's see what you can come up with. And a lot of time I see really surprising results, because I'm not restricting them to what my vision is or the limitations of my vision is, because I'm not doing 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day of somebody else's job on my team. I have this bigger picture, but the everyone else are doing their part. So let's see, for example, if I'm telling them, dictating them, I think that's not very productive. You need to just help them, mentor them, and then give them the freedom and support them, and then you will see amazing things happen.
If I were to summarize that, I would say you need to teach them how to find the problems and build those solutions, and then be there to support those solutions, right? So I think a lot of times the problem may be that when we're talking about training, it's not that they need the technical know-how. It's that we need to make sure that the people on our team are thinking the way we're thinking in respect to, hey, I see this problem on the website. Hey, there's this problem. How do I come up with a solution that can be scaled to the whole organization, right? Like getting them to think like that is super important. And putting mechanism and getting them to think about mechanisms, right? Like not just, hey, like, let me fix this. Think bigger, right? Like, how do you fix this? Like you gave a good example, like, hey, we want to give this back to the Drupal community, right? Like, how do we fix this? This is a problem we're facing. And if we're facing this problem, another sector of the government is probably facing it too, right? Another cabinet organization is probably facing it. So how do we scale this and give it back to everyone else, right? And so I think that's kind of where the big picture thinking really comes in. Atiq, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful experience. I've learned a lot in this episode. I know I probably should have kept more quiet and let you speak, but I just I get a little bit excited. So sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you. Really appreciate your time. And it was I think we should do this more often.
Absolutely. Would love to have you back on anytime. Last thing we do, this is a tradition of the Branding Deep Dive podcast, is the last question is always, what is your favorite brand?
Apple.
Apple? Why is that?
because I think Apple taught me what brand loyalty is. And I shared this example with you that I've been using Apple for last 15 years. I have iPhone 4, I believe. That's, or maybe 3. I don't even remember all those. And I don't remember the Apple phone had antenna problems. Like you're making a call and all of a sudden the call drops. So I was like really frustrated. I was like, really? The main function of the phone is to make a call. If the phone cannot make a call, doesn't matter what it does, man. That's the basic function. That's why the phone was built, right? No. Like you're making a call, all of a sudden, maybe getting directions or something very important, and boom. Apple's kept complaining that no, this is the wireless company, and the wireless company, no, it's Apple. But anyway, long story short, I don't think that a lot of people dropped. I did not drop. Okay.
So you were having connectivity issues.
Exactly.
And you're thinking to yourself, what? This is the main function of the phone.
It's like,
and yet you didn't.
I'm frustrated. I'm not liking Apple anymore, but I still have it. I'm not looking to switch to something else. Okay. So even then, I didn't get the whole picture. Okay. Like what is going on? What is loyalty, brand loyalty, customer loyalty? And then one day, one of my friends who teaches at Ohio University, he's an assistant professor there. I visited his house, and he was like, "Hey, Atiq, wait, look, my phone does this. It does tethering and 50 other things and blah blah blah." I was like, "Aha! See, this is called brand loyalty." I am satisfied, even though the calls are dropping, whatever is going on. I'm not like, okay, look what it does, man. So I think that is where Apple has so strong branding and customer loyalty. It is just amazing, and that is one of the reasons I love Apple products. Anything that I have bought, the people just they make fun of me that why I still have iPhone SE 6 years later when there is 12 Pro now, and I have same Mac Air for last 7 years. I don't think that any laptop I had that was not Apple and I had for more than 2 years without it struggling, the processor struggling and making so much noises that you're like, dude, I mean, come on. So yeah, no, the product that Apple has built, I think they deserve it. So for me, that was a lesson, that aha moment when my friend was like, okay, look, it does this and that. I was like, see, I mean, I'm satisfied. I don't even care.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
think that's one thing, like, I've noticed, and I mean, this is just my limited experience, so it might not be the case, but like, I feel like non-Apple users are always like, hey, look at the specs of this product. And you're just like,
right.
Dude, I don't care.
Right. Right. I mean, how many times you have looked at the RAM or something or have bought more RAM? I remember I have been a lifelong user of Microsoft products and Dell,
and you're a tech guy.
Right. And every now and then I was running around with like, okay, I'm going to go get some more RAM and put it in the computer and upgrade it, 7 years, man. I'm using Mac Air, and my son been using for his school online. I call it Zoom school, for a year, and he pounded, like depending on the day and and his mood. A 7-year-old, doesn't know that, if it's just stuck or taking some time to load, like they just want everything to show up right away, and that thing is still working. No issues there. No any compromise on the speed. The response time, it boosts like, as if it was brand new, as if I bought just yesterday. So I think that they build incredible products, and they deserve it.
Yeah, awesome. Love it. Thanks again for coming on.
Sure.
I'm looking forward to doing this again soon. Wow, there was a lot to unpack in this episode. As always, I'm going to try my best to distill down one or two key takeaways from this episode. But before we do that, I want to share a clip from an episode we did on the Republican Party with Faisal Chaudhry.
I mean, I think in general, Republicans have historically, like in the modern times, been much better at branding. At branding than the Democratic Party. And you pointed out, they do a good job of kind of simplifying their message into just a couple kind of key
sound bites.
Exactly. Yeah. And Democrats have always struggled with that.
If you enjoyed this deep dive on content management, I'm sure you'll also enjoy the deep dive on the Republican Party. Check it out wherever you're listening to this podcast. It is episode number 4. Now, here are my key takeaways. Number 1, take the time to invest in content creation and content management. When you're small and you only have a few pages on your site, it's a little bit easier to make sure that all the content is up to par. But as you scale and you get hundreds and thousands of pages, it becomes even more important to make sure that the content on your website represents your brand the way you want it to. So create mechanisms to make sure that that's happening. And number 2, there is a 3-step formula for creating a great product or website, and it goes like this. Step 1, understand the analytics to see what problems your target audience is facing. Step 2, build solutions based on that data that you have. And step 3, get feedback to see if those solutions are working. If you follow this formula, you will have a good product. And that is all for this episode. If you enjoyed this, please do rate and review on Apple Podcasts and share it with a friend. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.